Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to welcome you to the July 24th, 2018 USD 500 board meeting. We'll wait for a minute for Susan. And she appeared. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Westphal, would you please call the roll?
Carol Brown.
Present.
Maxine Drew.
Present.
Janie Humphreys. Present. Brenda Jones.
Present.
Wanda Brownlee-Page.
Present.
Eileen Nguyen.
Here.
Stacy Yeager. Present.
Thank you. Entertain a motion, please, to approve the regular agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the regular agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passed. Communications, Dr. Julie Ford.
Well, I'm really excited to tell you about some great things that were happening this week in Kansas City Public Schools. And our principals are back, and it really does change kind of the way things are happening around here. It gets a lot busier, a lot quicker, and everybody's phones is ringing a lot. We know school is getting close, so it's a good feeling. And I have to give Jason a lot of credit for this. The administrative meeting. I want to call out his team, too. The administrative meeting that I attended was one of the finest planned meetings to kick off school. And I want to tell you about the first activity they did, because it was really funny kind of for me. It really set home, because I have always worked in districts, much like Kansas City, that has challenges. I prefer working in a district. So the first thing they did was a little story about somebody that was remodeling their kitchen. And many of you know my son's a cabinet maker, and we recently remodeled a kitchen, and it's not easy. We're still not done, and we're going into the third year on this thing. But the woman put a lot of thought and planning on everything about this kitchen, where she wanted, what kind of marble she wanted, and what kind of cabinets, and what kind of drawers. They invested a lot of money. They kept adding things and taking things out, and they were going to have the very best kitchen that they could. And then as it all settled down, the kitchen was done, and they sat down to eat, and she made Grandma's pot roast, and truly it wasn't very good. It was kind of not even as good as Grandma's, and here they'd worked and worked and worked on that kitchen to get it just perfect, and still the food was kind of mediocre to poor, which would be like mine. So how did they then compare it to schools? And you know, schools come in, and they want to make schools better, and they work and they read and they research and they add this, they try that, they buy this, and they're always, but then sometimes when they're done, they don't get the results they're wanting. And it's just like the gal in her kitchen. She was doing a lot of things to plan the kitchen, but maybe she should have taken cooking lessons if she was wanting the results to have the good food. That was the first exercise they started with. And like I say, when I work with low-performing schools, they're working so hard. People are wanting to do a good job here. They're wanting to make a difference with kids. They're, really sweating doing this stuff. And then sometimes you get your results back, and it's like, well, we're working so hard, but we didn't get the results we needed. And that's when they moved into, so let's talk about our results, but let's look at what we're doing to get those results, and are we trying to measure the right things? And truly, they went into their presentation, which needs to be pretty high on your agenda, about looking at scores from last year. And I'll be honest, there's some good news in it and some not so good news. But after everybody went in and really delved into the data and really was having kind of hard conversations about root causes, what's causing us not to get the results that we want? Kind of like the gal, she wouldn't look at the root cause of her cooking being poor. So I just thought it was a tremendous meeting, and truly those administrators were engaged. The discussion was very high level, and they want to do what's right for kids. It was just a great, and I have to give the EDs a lot of credit for that. It was a great presentation. We then moved on to some trauma-informed schools discussion. And as we look at issues that are impacting this district and a lot of districts, and it's cross economics too. And one of the things that we know is a lot of our kids have had a lot of trauma in their life for not being very old. And then what that does, it causes them to be ill as an adult for things they experience as children. And really, this is an initiative that isn't just happening in Topeka Public Schools, but it's happening in Wyandotte County. And there's a lot of different groups that are working on trauma-informed care and making sure our kids have trauma-informed schools. And it will push you towards saying, what's wrong with you when a child does something wrong is to more of what's happened to you and how can we help you. And I know Janie was present, and it's really, I've been involved with this for quite some time on the trauma-informed, and it's something that will change the way people think about not only the students, but their families, but how can we in school districts help adapt them to maybe be more successful to overcoming some trauma and even being resilient, because that's what they need. You know, we always look at those families where one child has no trouble and the other children do. What does that one child have, that resilience that makes a difference? But anyway, it couldn't have been a better first start for administration. I have to say now, today they were working on the more ins and outs of what they're required as far as compliance with different departments, so it probably wasn't near as much fun today. But I have to give a hats off to the folks that were involved in planning that, and I know the EDs played a great big part, and it was a really tremendous back to school in service.
Good. All right. Thank you. We had, on Saturday, a few of us, most of us, had the opportunity to have a welcoming lunch with our new superintendent and his wife. And so we're looking forward to him arriving. Secondly, it would be just a grand omission if I didn't take time to thank Dr. Ford for her service this month. And more than just keeping a seat warm, she was engaged, and that's what we ask all of us to do with our students every day, and the model and all that. But so thank you to Dr. Ford for spending time with us, doing the job, getting us in line a few times, because that's your job. But also that we welcome your input anytime.
I've met the nicest people in this district. I sincerely mean that. I really, lots of wonderful people work here.
And then one thing that Dr. Ford and I had talked about that we had not done, so I'd like for Ms. Jones to stand up and come over here. Please. And we have a plaque that says Brenda C. Jones, Board President, Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools, 2017-2018. And we couldn't find a purple one, so that will have to do. All right. Other than that, any other communications?
Yeah, I enjoyed that welcoming the new administration last week and being there with all the administration with the trauma-informed schools. It really resonated with me because I could sit and look at the checklist that they gave us and could pinpoint things that happened in my life and happened in some of the kids' lives that I've worked with. And sometimes you don't realize those little things can have a big effect on you. And so when you have more of that training, please let me know, because it was very, very interesting, informative, and opened my eyes to a lot. So thank you for letting me come and be part of that. And just welcome everyone back. It was really fun to see all the administrators last week. So thank you.
Other comments?
I'd just like to say that on Monday, July 16th, I had an opportunity to travel to Girard, Kansas to attend a budget workshop meeting at the Greenbush Education Center. I have a great deal of respect for Dr. Kelly Mather and her team of workers who are responsible for making sure that they meet all the requirements of the district and state to maintain expenditures and revenues. It was a learning experience for me, and I do recommend to any other board members, if you've never been, you need to go so that you can learn some things about how this intricate process does take place. And I thank everyone who gave me the opportunity to go. I have to say that the ride was marvelous. I had an opportunity to see cows and chickens and cranes and ducks and horses, and even just look at the open farmland of Kansas as we were traveling. So just say thank you.
Other comments?
Dr. Ford and I went to that yesterday. It was yesterday, wasn't it? And yeah, it did open your eyes a lot, didn't it, Maxine?
Yes.
Oh, that's why I'm not an accountant.
Nope.
I might mention I want to thank NEA for also sending representatives to attend with us. I think it was beneficial for us to have those conversations at the table informally, and also for them to kind of see the process too.
Right. Always a learning and teaching moment. All right. Community comment. Mr. Welsh.
I was going to bring you some flowers, but you're a bunch of academics, so I brought you a book instead.
Thank you.
Pass this on. Sure. Board members, superintendent, those that know me best know I come to talk about parks. I seem to be the sole citizen to regularly pay attention to our local parks. Been watching since 1991. It makes more sense if you know my grandmother lived only 6 miles from the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I made my first visit to that big park when I was 3. My sport is hiking, especially in the Appalachians. I've spent months traversing those old mountains, wading big rivers, caught snowstorms, bone tired, out of water and hungry. It's a place of daring, lifelong learning, and critical thinking. A nifty quote by Alfred North Whitehead amplifies a lesson the mountains teach. Not ignorance, but ignorance of ignorance is the death of knowledge. I've looked around this room and the board itself these last several weeks. I see many are fat and a few have canes. These are hard words. It tells me many in this room have not learned the lessons the mountains teach. Pay attention. There is a knowledge revolution coming to light through scientific research about lunch. Not lunch itself, but what's for lunch. What researchers tell us is stunning, hard to believe, and amazing. It is possible to drop blood pressure, clear clogged arteries, cure early stage breast and prostate cancer, 100% cure type 2 diabetics, ameliorate multiple sclerosis, and arrest all types of inflammatory arthritis, all with no medications. It is not lunch itself, but it's what's for lunch. I've talked with a few ordinary physicians that have this information. They warn that big money and government retards spreading this knowledge. They feel powerless. Not ignorance, but ignorance of ignorance is the death of knowledge. The light has long been known and is reported in Genesis 1:29, which says, God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You have them for food."
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, Madam President. Related to that, someone asked me what alternatives do we have to pork for our students who may not eat pork or find it against their religious belief, do we have alternatives to that? Or how will we make sure that our students who don't eat pork or things of that nature get awareness to get an alternative diet?
It's offered.
Does anybody here give us a more detailed? I don't see Josh here.
Josh is not here. Dr. Nguyen, Dr. Ford, Dr. Yeager. There are a variety of alternatives that are provided for all students based on not only the religious beliefs, but if they're vegetarian or not vegetarian. We'd be happy to bring back to you at your request maybe like some menus so you can see the different options. But that's something that Mr. Mathesmeyer has certainly been trying to address on a regular basis.
Great. If you could bring that information, I think that would help us address some of the issues or concerns.
And I'm
Also, if I may, Dr. Yeager, it's also in relation to holidays that are celebrated too within the schools. There are provisions for that as well.
Okay.
So the key is to having parents know, so that the students also. So I'm sure that that's on the agenda at the beginning of the school year.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Board updates, please. Bond summer opening of school update, Dr. Mathers.
Going to go with this one. Dr. Nguyen, board members, Dr. Ford, good evening. Good
Evening.
afternoon.
Afternoon.
Whatever it is.
Good day.
Good day. Be a good day if this opens. There we go. I just want to give you a very brief update and turn the mic over to Mark, as he's going to provide certainly a lot more enlightening information. We really wanted to focus this evening on just getting schools back open and all of the projects that we've been working on over the summer, and they are many projects. So we have not had any bid packages go out, so your update is on your board doc so that you can see it. For the expenditures for June, I want to just always point that out to you, that that's been updated. Just over $5.6 million have been expended. You'll see that probably double for the month of July. That'll be on your next monthly board update or bond update as far as expenditures. So you can look down to see the running total, with $79 million still being the guaranteed max prices on the bid packages that we've bid out to date. Again, we've not done any new ones recently, with a total bond revenue still at $122 million. So just wanted to give that to you so you would know that's in your board packet or board docs. And then I will turn it over to Mark if I can get this open for him. So we can focus on really just what we've been doing all summer and trying to get our schools back open before our students get there. So, Mr. Stovall.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Before I go through the list here, I just want to kind of give you how we've been planning how to get the schools open. So we knew we had 12 buildings we were engaged with this summer. So we've deliberately been cleaning other schools that we're not in so that we could pull teams away of custodians to help deep clean these buildings and get them ready. So we've had a strategy in place, honestly, since the day school was out. What we've done here, as J.E. done, is turning space back over to us. Our custodians are following right through, cleaning, scrubbing the floors, deep cleaning it, moving furniture back in, setting up. Because we were in a lot of spaces, even classrooms that aren't new or academy spaces. We changed ceilings in some of the buildings, things like that. So we still had to empty the room, and now we're reoccupying it. Our goal is to be back for the teachers on the 4th. That's a Saturday. Some of the teachers will be coming back on Saturday. Our goal is to have these buildings ready so the teachers can get back in so they can start prepare for school. That gives us 1 week, too, there'll be little things that we have to chase down even after the teachers are in, but we wanted to get all those gremlins taken care of before our students are back on the 10th. So we definitely have a strategy for moving back in, and we have engaged it. I mean, we've been working pretty hard. Our custodians, like a Grant, the second floor is already cleaned, waxed, set up, and they're moving down, and we're basically chasing J.E. Dunn right out of the building. There's a lot going on. It's a busy time, but I mean, I have to say I'm kind of excited for the teachers to get back. Some of these spaces they're beautiful. Arrowhead, the transformation there is amazing, and I think it is anyway. I hope the teachers think so too. I hope we're giving them the tools they need to really impact lives. So let me run through the different projects here, and please feel free to ask any questions. I know anything you would want to know, I can get into very detail if you want, but I'll stay at a high level. Wyandotte High School, we're moving along quite well. Here's a couple pictures here. Understand that these pictures are 2 weeks old, so we're a little further than these pictures show. But we've completed many of the nursing academies. We've had some of the furniture start up now to be delivered, and then next week most of it gets moved in. We will complete the main stack restrooms. The majority of the restroom and plumbing upgrades are done. We always planned on going to October 1st with some of the smaller restrooms. We've already done a lot of that demolition on those restrooms, so the dirt is done, so we don't make a mess while we're still working in the evenings up till October. But the majority of the plumbing renovation is done. The academy spaces are done. We're starting to get the furniture in. You can see here, the different academies, they're getting finished. And we're moving through. We're in a pretty good situation at Wyandotte. Still have a lot of work to do. We got 10 days before the teachers are back, and we're going to use every day we can. But we're moving quite well there. I'll move to Grant. This picture's pretty old here, so I mean that doesn't look like we're in great shape there, but we are. Most of those walls are all drywalled. The painters were there today. The roof, the ceilings are in. The lights are in. Like I said, at Grant, the second floor has been cleaned, furniture's moved back in. We're starting to transition down to the second floor, moving in. We've got a lot of work to do there, but we're moving quite well. One thing to remember at Grant, we are doing an addition there. So the lower picture, that's the work that's happening for the addition. That'll open over Christmas. So our strategy, I've been working with the principal, Dr. Malone there, and we have a few people that are displaced. We found homes for them temporarily till the new wing opens. And then over Christmas break, we'll occupy that space. So we're well on track for that addition. But the new secure entry will open this when school opens. The new kitchen there will open. The nurse now has an actual office instead of a closet. There's a lot of upgrades there. So Grant, just understand that Grant, it won't be fully complete till Christmas when the new wing, because then the people that are displaced, and I found a temporary home, that's when their new home will be finished. They'll actually have a music and an art room that they've never had before. So let's see here. Schlegel High School, we're moving quite well there. Painters were in there this weekend, so all these walls that you see have been painted. The glass is up. Furniture, I think, comes on Monday for Schlegel. We're going to make Schlegel. We'll be fine. I think all the teachers, the new teachers are in Schlegel next week, so I've got to get it all clean for them, but we're working on that too. Let's see, Washington High School. Most of those rooms were done. We had a little bit of a delay. We had a leak in an exterior wall. We had to fix that, so we'll get caught up here, and we'll be ready for the 4th, if not before then. One neat room at Washington was one of the teaching academy. And relatively speaking, it was an inexpensive room. We put carpet in there, ceiling tile, painted it, and you went from the 50s to the new century, just with cosmetic upgrades. It's really a neat room, and it's a fun room that I think would help the teachers. So, Harmon High School. Honestly, this academy there is probably one of my favorites, just from the visual, the feel of it when you go in there. I was there this morning. These pictures don't give it service. It's very attractive and very, it draws you in. The tile's beautiful. It's a pretty fun space. It's where, if you recall at Harmon, next to the cafeteria where the lockers used to be, we took all the lockers out and we built those spaces. So we also ended up, was able to change out most of the ceiling there in the corridors. So that'll be nice to actually have lights that illuminate everything instead of being limited. So let's see what else. Sumner. Sumner, we're doing the plumbing at Sumner, and it's all in. These pictures here are 2 weeks old. This science classroom, the epoxy floor was put on this weekend. The cabinets will come in this week. We're pressing right ahead. That's going to be a wonderful science room there. Restrooms are done. As far as the plumbing, we'll start hanging fixtures, and once we get the floors epoxied. There's a lot to do at Sumner, but we're moving right forward. Stony Point put new ceilings in there. That's complete. Guys are probably 75% done cleaning and prepping the old wing, and then the new wing, they'll move right into that next week and get that ready for school. And same thing at Claude Hike. We're probably 75% done cleaning the old wing, and we'll move directly into the new wing with our, again, we're chasing JE Dunn right out of the building. So let's see here. Silver City, that was basically the vestibule we put in. I think I'm waiting on one piece of the door lock, and I'll be done. It was back ordered, so that's just a matter of hooking it up. Eugene Ware, new kitchen. I think the delivery of the equipment is next Wednesday, and we'll get that put in. Very similar to the other schools. Still a lot to do, but really at this point, once you see drywall that's been taped, it's just a matter of carpet and ceiling, and that's relatively quick. So, I mean, that's a pretty quick, you know what, I think I forgot Arrowhead. Arrowhead's doing very well too. It's a dramatic transformation. I'm sorry I forgot that on the slide here. Do you have any questions for me?
Someone asked me today that there are nets being put in at the elementary schools to prevent the balls on the playground from going outside the area, so they don't have to go chase balls if they accidentally kick them out.
I'm not familiar with it. My focus was on the, I don't think that would be I'm focusing on the bond and the buildings. I'm not saying it's not being done.
Right, so I had a question. They wanted to know how they could get something like that for their school. So who would they request that through, or what would be the process?
Dr. Yeager, they can reach out directly to myself or to Doug Clements, who's the director of the shop. We have put up nets like that in some schools. We don't have very many of them around the playground areas, but we've been looking at things like that in the past. I know we did that we didn't use a net. We actually used an extension for a fence at Mark Twain because of the street proximity. So if they could reach out to Doug Clements, the director of the shop, or myself, we'd be happy to get them hooked up, and we'll see what the cost would be.
They said it was the school close to elementary school by Washington, where they always are getting balls kicked into their yard or down the streets or whatever. They noticed that.
If you could just have them reach out to us, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sorry?
I'm sorry. I have a question, and I heard you saying that you've been chasing J.E. Dunn. Specifically, how many schools are not going to be ready by the time school starts? I heard you say Grant will be ready in December, but how many schools overall will not be ready at the time that school starts? And then what are the alternatives of what you're going to do to try to make sure it doesn't interfere with student learning?
For school.
They will
Grant, we plan to open the addition. That was planned. The school will still open.
Okay.
It's just that addition, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to misspeak on that. All the schools are going to be open. Our goal is to have the school open for the teachers to return on the 4th to give them time to prep for the kids on the 10th.
So by the time the kids come in, everything should be finished? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, there'll be little things that I'm touching up paint and things like that, but our goal is to be done by the 4th with a little bit of tweaks that week between the 4th and the 10th.
Okay, and if that doesn't take place, what is your plan?
For opening the schools?
No, for making sure that the changes are not going to infringe upon the students being in the building.
So I'll give you one example. For instance, at Sumner, we went to change the cabinet in the art room, and apparently there had been a leak that we didn't know about, and it was rotted. So we removed it. We ordered new cabinetry. It's not going to make it by the time school starts. So I put a temporary sink in. I put temporary shelves so that teacher has some place to work until the new equipment comes in. We're trying to adapt everything. Anything that would be like that, there's not very much that we wouldn't have ready. But anything like a situation like that, we didn't know about. It was unforeseen. So we did our best to give the teacher the tools to still function till I can get the cabinet. I think they're expecting it the 3rd week of September. It takes a while to build the cabinets for it.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Then we would install that cabinet, for example, to follow up on his example, either after school hours, weekends, whatever we need to do.
Yeah,
we just won't interrupt the instruction at that point.
Yeah, we'd probably come in at night or Saturday.
Okay.
You know, one of the things that you do so well that we should compliment you on is project management. You have so many projects going at one time, but you document what you're doing. And I always think, engineering people that have this background, we could all learn a lot from you about how you keep multiple things going and have plans. And it's obvious to me that this bond is such a great thing for your community, but it's really been run well, and I take my hat off to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Where's the kitchen project?
Well, there are 4 kitchens that we're working on. You're For the schools?
I'm talking about the relocation of the kitchen at 18th and...
The central kitchen?
Yeah, central kitchen, yeah.
That is...
Located at 56th and State Avenue.
When is that project going to start, or has it started?
We are currently working with the design team and the architects. So we're actually doing the preliminary design. We got to send it to the Unified Government. Miguel Gordon is the construction manager, as you recall. So I don't recall the timeline off the top of my head, but I think it's in the fall, late fall, that we're going to try to get started, actually. The facility's been demoed, so just breaking ground to build the new facility.
Okay, thank you.
In the fall.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one more question. The piping that, as I understand it, there was a pretty significant plumbing or piping issue at Wyandotte. Is that right?
Well, we're replumbing the entire building.
Okay,
yes.
was that lead pipe piping?
Some of the lead was used to connect some of the piping, and that was all abated by
Okay, was it PVC or?
I'm sorry?
Was it PVC or?
The pipes that were removed? Yeah. No, it was all either cast, and it was lead solder that connected the cast, but we would have that demoed with an abatement contractor.
Sure, okay, all right, thank you.
So.
Well,
Dr. Nguyen, I might recommend that maybe we take a board field trip after we kind of get some of these schools, get the kids back in.
Right.
I'd like to be able to show the board the academy spaces and some of the remodeling that we've done this summer. So I might recommend that for your consideration.
And by that time, I'm sure all the orange
Yeah, they'll be out. Right.
At Wyandotte. Aren't those and the heavy equipment cranes?
Yeah,
How
lifting
long will
things
they
over
stay
buildings.
there? How long are they going to stay there? Because, I mean, you
crane-
drive past Wyandotte, you've got to avoid the cones, and then if you fall into the hole on the north side, is that the city, or is that
On
connected
the
to
north side, that's us.
That's
Changing
okay.
the sewer lines.
Uh-huh.
Sewer lines are deep. They're 22 feet deep. That's what they're working on. They're, exterior-wise, they're probably 85 to 90% complete.
But when school opens, that will be clear, or you?
There'll be one last section to do on that north side. They'll still be working there, exterior, and we'll still be working on some of the smaller restrooms in the locker rooms and around the, there's 2 bathrooms by the side of the gymnasium. So they'll be finishing, we had scheduled those to finish early October. By the 2nd, I believe it was.
That's kind of a follow-up, Ms. Drew, that I guess students come in from the other direction, because you surely don't have.
Yeah, there's a pathway for them to get through, yes. We'll probably do all the seating and so forth once it cools down a little bit. We'll probably do it late August, early September, because to seat it right now wouldn't make any difference. But, I mean, most of the exterior work is done, with the exception of where you see they're at. I believe that's their last section they have to do. And they should finish that pretty soon. I don't think they'll finish it by the 4th, though.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
Other questions? Thank you.
Might also say, Dr. Nguyen, if I could, I'm sorry to steal another minute of time here, but I would be remiss in not following up with Dr. Ford's comment. Mark is being a little humble, I think. He's actually the reason we're opening all of our schools on time, and his work with J.E. Dunn. I mean, there's been a lot of projects out there happening on a regular basis all summer, and I appreciate his leadership with that and the work that he's done to get these schools back open and do some amazing spaces. They're afraid to take me out there because I'm going again this week, but every time I go, I kind of panic thinking, how are we going to get this school back open? But they, somehow through miracles, they do it, and we're excited for the space. So I wanted to publicly acknowledge Mark.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Human Resource Opening of School Update. Mr. Thompson?
Good afternoon, Board.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Nguyen.
Sir?
Thank you. This afternoon, we are to present to you our vacancies. And the first part will deal with the KCKPS summer recruitment results. And so I'm going to ask Cynthia Folks to come up, and so we can be a partner in this presentation.
Good afternoon, Dr. Nguyen, and to the board.
Good afternoon.
We are happy to give this progress report because we're not at the end of everything, and I know that you hear me say that often. But I also wanted to be able to address, I believe, a couple of things that I heard that the board would like us to do so, and that is to just share with you where we've been over the past 60 days and to give you some ideas of what we are attempting to do as we go forward from this day forward. So I'm happy to report we have had 8 district job fairs. They have been here. We have also been at 2 of our libraries, West Library as well as South Library. We have also been, as of this morning, in a joint job fair with Kansas Works off of Minnesota. And so all of those efforts, some of those efforts that are more recent, the past 3, are not here before you tonight because we're just gathering all the information of how many people attended versus how many people actually had an actual sit-down interview with one of our supervisors. We were able to take some of our classified supervisors with us. At various points in time, Ms. Stephanie Peppers joined us in order to talk more about the substitute teachers. And then for the actual job fairs that we had here, we actually had in excess of 10 to 20 administrators who joined us at each and every one of those events. So the one thing that I wanted to show you since June 1st is that we have hired 102 certified staff since June 1st. And so what you're seeing tonight is more of the comments that you wanted to hear about from the teacher perspective, so I'll try to keep it at that particular level. Out of the 102 certified staff, that does include the social workers that you approved of 60 days ago to be involved in that same effort. And so it is my understanding that we only have about 3 more social workers out of that large group that you wanted us to have ready on day 1. This is some of the other things that I was just talking about in summation for you. But 2 of the events that we will be having, one will be on Friday, as well, which is July the 27th, from 4:30 to 7 o'clock. And the other one will be on next Saturday, August the 4th. And both of those will be here as well. When we can, we do try to go out to other areas so that we can meet more of the community at places where they would like us to meet them. One of the advantages that happened by some coordination with Ms. Levers and her group by being at some of the libraries for the first time is that they were able, if they could not access applications or if they needed some help with that, we had some additional individuals to be there to help through that by using the computers at the library. At the same time, if individuals were here at central office and they didn't necessarily want to come in and interview because some of these events were both classified and certified together versus just certified or just classified, when we had them here at the central office, if they wanted to go upstairs, we had some of our HR personnel available with computers that we could actually sit down and help them at least log on, take care of any issues so that they then could complete it on the spot. And so those are the types of things community-wise that we wanted to make sure that we addressed, that everyone had an opportunity to get the help they needed to have applications uploaded if they were having trouble at their respective homes or if they were attempting to do that on their mobile and they couldn't complete it. Just over the past 60 days, this is not the entire list, but this gives you an idea of social media and presentations that were made about our various vacancies, particularly with respect to certified. And so this is just, I'm not going to go through all of these, but we do have either flyers that were presented, such as at the Boys or Girls Club. We attended what was called a summer splash party that was being put on jointly by our group as well as the Harvesters one Friday afternoon. And then there is a wealth of information that's going out in joint, in combination with Ms. Melissa's communication and public relations department they have spread the word out through various means as we update them on a weekly basis, because if you can see by the dates that we had, only the 4th of July was the only week that we did not have an event that either we sponsored or that we co-sponsored with another joint organization in order to make sure that they knew about all of the vacancies that we had to start the new year. The only other item that I have here is just a progress report on those programs that fall under your title of Grow Your Own. Many of these you already know about, but these are the actual jobs that have been extended and have been accepted by individuals who are coming to teach for us just during this summer. So we have solidified Teach for America. Some of those individuals are in their restricted or will be in their restricted license program at Pittsburgh State to actually get a license within 2 years. The International Teachers Program comes through KSDE, and this is our second year of joining with them. The Kansas Transition to Teaching Grant allows our teachers, those who were in our school district that actually met their criteria, for a one-year program, and subsequently they were able to obtain their master's degrees, and we now have hired them to work, primarily they're working in the elementary area. And then our Parent to Teaching program is something that we're really excited about, because one of the things that this board allowed us to do in recruiting as of, I believe this time last year, I think it was July 9th, that you actually allowed some additional financial funds to be set aside to work with paras. And what we find is that in our paras that are currently working for us, more than 60% of them are here in the Wyandotte County living, and they had such an interest but never had the means to have some type of financial support to get their teaching license. So the state allows for a parent teaching type of program, and we have been able to secure 6 people with respect to that, where they have now taken over as teachers, or they're in their final year of being able to do that 2-year program. And then last but not least, you've heard about the Teaching Fellows Program, and we presented that a couple of months ago, but 21 active teaching fellows just this year are with us. They went through the summer program. They were up under an actual professional licensed teacher. During that period of time, they took their first 9 credit hours toward their master's degrees from Pittsburgh State, but those classes are held here in the central office. And now they are prepared. They're going through the rest of their 2-year program, whereby then they will obtain their master's degree, or they'll be on a certification program that is approved through KSDE. I think there is another slide that it's not up here, but you have before you that actually cites the vacancies that we have right now. Those vacancies were up to date as of the time it was submitted to you by Ms. Susan. The only thing that I would offer for that is that, as you can see, we do have 61 vacancies, or we did at that time. But what I am also sharing with you, that as a matter of about 2 hours ago, we actually were able to receive 2 offers that were accepted. But unfortunately, we had one additional individual who resigned. And so that is the type of daily work that is going on, that in the morning I could present one thing to you, but by 5 o'clock it could be a little bit different. And that's why usually the board allows me to be able to come back the first meeting of September to give you exactly who started, all of the characteristics and statistics that you would like in terms of race, in terms of experience level of individuals, in terms of who started on day 1, and in terms of anything that needed to be right-sized. And when I say right-sized, by September 20th, as we know, the final count for students are in, and exactly where those teachers a few of them may have needed to be moved in order to take care of a classroom that the numbers needed to be right-sized and the teacher needed to be moved around. Those are the kind of things that allows me then to be able to give you a clearer idea of exactly what happened as results. That's all that I have at this time.
I'd like to remind the board that we have a shortage of teachers in this area. And a lot of the critical positions, many of the school districts around us, they are recruiting some of our teachers because our teachers are some of the best trained teachers in the state of Kansas. And we lost a teacher this morning when we were presenting, and we didn't expect that. And so I've never seen in this district where we had openings in elementary school. Seems like by sometimes in July or late June, all of those positions are filled. We've had a struggle all the time with special ed, math, and also science classes. Now, we continue to work, and you're probably asking, what are you going to do about that? Well, we met with our EDs yesterday, and to really think about how we can put the best people in front of our kids at the beginning of the school year. And we have some very good ideas. We've identified 22 critical areas in which we need to have a substitute teacher or a long-term teacher in front of those students. Now, you have to remember this also. The Mason-Hunter contract no longer exists. We've had to build that substitute program. To date, we have above 200 of those subs. We also have a large number of subs that's at the state level. They're in limbo because the state have to approve those teaching licenses or substitute licenses. So there's three areas of subs. We have a 15-day sub. We have a 30-day sub. Last year, we were able to, if a sub worked 15 days, they could miss a day, and then they could go back to that position a day later. We also had the same situation with 30-day subs. They could work 30 days, they could miss a day, and then they could go back. The state made a ruling, for this year, that can no longer happen. But in talking with Dr. Strickland, there may be an opportunity to lobby for something that may release some of that, that pressure of having, people in those classrooms. I mean, it doesn't hurt people, it hurts kids.
Exactly.
And so, Amy Jo, where are you? Can you come up for a second? We spent time talking with our teachers today, our principals today about it, because, we have got to make sure that, we're not playing a blame game. It's HR. HR is more than just hiring and going out investigating. There's a great deal to this. It's more than just recruiting. And, we're partners in this thing together. We have to retain our teachers. We're dealing with a lot of young people that are millennials, and they may not feel as if they owe a district allegiance. So we have to do a much better job of, retaining those particular individuals. But we are working on, getting the appropriate people in front of our kids and in our schools. Is there anything else you want to add to that? Sorry? Okay, but they are happy to be here for questions. Any questions?
Well, I'll just say, we understand that it is a challenge, and we are all in this together. And so moving forward, and I'll wait till others have questions, and I'll come back to your presentation. But moving forward, we also understand that let us not forget there are experienced teachers out there in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, who have come to seek employment and were denied. So while those millennials are hired, there are mature people, teachers, who understand going to work every day and long-term. So we're, as I say, we understand the challenge. We're here together because an effective, efficient teacher who engages equals, among other things, success for the students. So I'll reserve time and come back. Go.
I had a question about diversity. You mentioned there was 102 hired. Is there any way, and I know sometimes there's some difficulty doing that, can you give us an idea of maybe what percentage were Hispanic? Because we have a large Hispanic population. There's a lot of research out there that says children need to see themselves. So can you give us some information at this time about that?
Sure. Unfortunately, at this time, we can't. The reason that we cannot is that those individuals are still completing the onboarding process, and that's data collected at onboarding, not at the application process. But that is data that we are pulling together for a full comprehensive report for the board, as Cynthia had mentioned, to be able to bring to you hopefully in September or October, whatever pleases the board of what time frame you'd like to see that. So we do have to wait till those individuals are officially onboarded because there is a system of record where that data is kept, and it is not in the application process.
And I might mention I've been working with Dr. Faust as he's starting to talk about what benchmarks he wants the HR department to have. And as we look at things like attrition and, you know, I'm just thinking off some of that will be included in when he's planning what benchmarks we have and then setting goals for the HR department as they move forward. That will probably be part of their September report, so we can kind of start the benchmarking process this year and looking at where the growth is this following years, where you measure the same thing year to year to year, kind of pulling it together in one report that would always come up September. And that's very traditional time for an HR department to report out to a board on lots of different things in September, mainly because the HR department is swamped in June, July, and August. They can kind of catch their breath, get that report together, and then it should be benchmarked every year in September, where you go back and see what progress you've made on areas you want to identify. And I imagine he'll ask you what you're wanting to benchmark in the HR department too. He's got a good handle on this.
I'd just like to say thank you for what you've done. It's obvious that you've really been working hard, and I just appreciate it that you have been able to close that gap of getting more people involved and hired here, and just want to encourage you to keep doing it, and everything eventually will work out as we work together.
I too want to acknowledge the work that Cynthia's been doing. I've had some constituents that had questions about the process or where they were or anything. So thank you so much for getting back to those individuals that made mention, and I just forward them the information to you. Also, I have seen the ads that's been out in the community and in the public, and some constituents are also republishing those ads or things of that nature. I did need to clarify or get clarification on the classified positions. Is there more communication about when the application has been received and that it's still in progress? Because it seems like that's still a missing piece. Have we been able to solve that to where constituents know that, hey, we did receive it and we are in process? Because that's the biggest thing that I'm still getting feedback on, is they still are not sure if it's been received or what's going on with it because it's been a couple months or what have you. Is there any updates on that aspect of it?
Sure. I think we can both kind of tag team that one. So a traditional notification process involves a couple different forms of communication. And so, you know, maybe perhaps we can talk a little more offline to see what they might have specifically said to you. But examples of communication could include individuals upon submitting an application immediately receive an email that confirms that their application has been submitted. Anytime their status changes, they also receive an email that explains that status change and links them to our FAQ for more information about that. And then at a time where a position is either offered to them or if the position has been filled by another candidate and is closed, they also receive a follow-up notification to that. secondary to that process, if individuals have been interviewed, we send out a specific type of notification to acknowledge that time that they invested in that process, to acknowledge that they've interviewed. So it is not kind of a standard response. It's a bit more personalized for those individuals who have gone through that process. So our traditional method has been email, but there are many times where individuals are also called by hiring managers who may have interviewed them as an outreach to say thank you for your time, thank you for your investment. And so sometimes some candidates will receive communication both from HR and from the individuals that they interviewed with too.
And so if they're not getting that, it's a possibility that something went wrong in that application.
It could be at the point of data entry, so we would want to make sure that we have their correct email address, of course. So that would be one area that could be a gap in communication if there was a mistyping of email, or if there are individuals who don't frequently check their email, that notifications could be coming, they may not be aware. So that's one option we could certainly explore.
So one of the things that, once you alerted us to the fact that some of that was going on, as well as I think a couple of the board members, I began to work more with the hiring managers, albeit during the summer, a lot of them were gone, but we did get some communication out where now, before anything happens, or once the recommendation is made to an HR director that they think they would like to hire someone, they're now including me in some of that information so that then I will immediately know if the job posting needs to go down, the notification needs to go out to those individuals. The hiring managers are now also sharing with me more information about the interviews. And so prior to that time, I was just receiving some of that information after the point of hire, or right when the HR directors were sending all the various parties the notification, and we were beginning the onboarding process, which for us is electronic now, as opposed to asking people to come in with paperwork and providing a lot of things to us. What they can do now is receive all of that electronically, and that big part of that process just happened within the past year. So that's a little bit new, and I think that was causing a little bit of a clog in some respects, where I was notified, or my recruitment team was notified, so that we could then go into action and make sure that those individuals who had applied knew where they stood and that it had gone down. And now we're even including the fact that we have more openings available possibly in those areas. So if we have teachers, we let them know now that we still have other content areas that we're interested in case they have a second endorsement or something of that nature.
Good. Well, thank you.
Okay.
I have a quick question. The Parent-to-Teacher program, is that funded through the Kansas Transition to Teaching Grant?
Those are two
separate things. Okay.
Yes. One is more respective. The Kansas Transition to Teaching Grant is for elementary level. The restricted license that we have, the fellows or any other individuals that we hired through the restricted license program, is for secondary, and these are all according to the KSDE's regulations. And then the other program, the Parent-to-Teaching program, is something that not all of the universities actually teach, but the ones that are teaching it, it requests that the paras be employed by the school district for 1 year.
Okay, that was.
And then they're able to get into those respective programs with various classes and can become the teacher of record. And then we can extend that offer early before they get to that final point and then keep them here with us.
Okay, thank you.
So I have two questions, please. A couple current employees applying for other jobs. So obviously you have the correct emails. What should be my response to them as to how to inquire the status of their application?
You know, if they're internal, if they can just come and speak with me, if that's what they need, or if they would prefer for me to call them.
Or they call you.
Yeah, to just call me.
All right.
And that way they don't have to go through.
Exactly. The second set of questions is more of a asking you, have you analyzed your recruitment procedure thus far. You've given us those who attended. So of your 102, have you had an opportunity to step back and see which of these did they attend? Was there something, did something work better than others? Have you had that chance to analyze just this set of job fairs?
It's my impression, as opposed to,
Hard
some
data.
One of the things that, there's two things that we did successfully in 2017 that seems to have not made such a big difference in 2018 that I'm going to go back to. One is to offer the career fairs at various places, but to stagger it between a day one and an evening one. And we did that successfully in 2017, and I believe we were much further along by July, this time last July, in terms of being able to quickly hire and get them into the process and get them ready. So with respect to the job fairs,
Were these all
this
day
year
or
we
these all
offered
nights?
more of the day ones, and not as many of the evening ones where they didn't have to take off work. That was a big factor in taking off whatever their summer roles or summer jobs were, if they were certified. Classified tended to come more, whether it was day or evening. So I have noticed a little bit of a difference with our certified, that they need to have something in the evenings so they can still maintain whatever they're doing for the summer and not interrupt that.
So what do you have planned?
So the next two are this coming Friday at 4:30 to 7:30 p.m.
And August 4th.
And then next Saturday, we're going to have that.
And have you had a chance to follow up with those who attended but who were not hired?
Not in any formal way other than we have phone calls that I have messages from that I call them back, and there are many of them that are still in process, meaning just because they may have come to an actual career fair and certain positions were open then and others were not, now they're seeing that some of those positions are open that they may be better suited for, and so they're still calling me and letting me know that they are with us. Or they would still like to be considered. There is a group that actually has contacted me to let me know that they're no longer going to be able to be considered because they've either taken another offer.
Right, so but the ones that are saying positive, have you followed up with them?
Yes.
And the status is what? Have they been hired? Have they been put back in the system? What?
They're continuing to be in the system unless the job posting, unless the job has gone inactive or has been filled. Let me explain inactive. A principal just last week had an opportunity. They had someone who was hired for a careers exploration position. And that particular individual actually had a couple of endorsements, and the principal had a new opening that occurred that we didn't know would happen. So this new teacher, who happens to be an experienced teacher, actually, because they had two different endorsements, the principal was able to move them into that immediate position that became available. So that left that same position open again. And it's not that it's a new allocation, it just means I need another career exploration teacher to take over that particular position. So now there are some other teachers who had that particular endorsement to teach that I can now go say, oh, that did go down a month ago, but it's back open.
Well, that leads me down another path, but I'm going to hold on to that one.
Okay.
Do you have an exit survey of those participants when they walk out the door? Are you gathering any data from them?
And that's an area of opportunity.
Okay.
I don't currently have it to be able to show the results of it, but it is something that the HR directors and I are working on. We have a way now to complete that and get that more instantaneous. So no, I don't have anything right now.
Okay, so the answer is no.
Benchmark, when you start benchmarking,
Right.
it would be a great one to add this year and track them right too.
As opposed to waiting until the end of the year where we just send it out to everyone.
I mean, when they walk out the door, they can tell you what worked and what didn't work.
Right.
If I may, I think what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing you say is, do we let someone walk out of the career fair and because they were not hired that day, are we done contacting them? We have no more contact with them. We're considering them no longer active. The short answer would be no. Those are still people we are pursuing. Those are still people that our individual principals are interviewing at their sites as well for those vacancies that may change. And then those are also people that we stay in constant communication with to invite them back to another career fair, because that's an opportunity for them to get in front of many principals.
Exactly.
So we don't consider them a cold applicant at that point, if I'm understanding maybe your
That's
question.
correct, but,
Okay.
but the other no answer was, before I walk out the door, you don't have a satisfaction survey, you don't have any hard data to say the lighting was bad. I did not have access to the computer, which I don't understand why you don't have one sitting right there for people to apply online, if you must do that. But nevertheless, these are just things to make it better. So that's what I hear you saying, that there's no exit survey.
We actually have iPads available.
Okay.
On our sign-in table. There's several. It's just that sometimes the amount of data that they need to upload, if
They don't have it with them. Got
the
it.
Wi-Fi may just, it's better on a desktop.
Yeah.
Or if that's what we have.
Or if they have a jump, for example, if they bring their resume on a jump drive,
Yeah.
that's difficult to do on an
Technology is not
iPad.
always our friends. But one last point that you made, we still have individuals who have come before us, listening tours with endorsements, and have not been hired, and there's vacancies here. We need to circle them back to you? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we would encourage, if you are contacted by any candidate, internal, external, whomever, if you are contacted by any candidate, we recognize that as a board member, it's difficult for you to have those kinds of conversations. We would just encourage you to send them to our team, whether it's myself, Jody, Cynthia, Walt. We are happy to talk them through the process. I know Dr. Yeager, we've worked with you a lot in getting candidates, moving through the process. And likewise, if you have individual questions about staff, that's something you can bring to Dr. Ford, Dr. Faust, or us. I mean, we welcome that conversation anytime, but we want to be respectful of your obligations as a board member. But we can also talk through perhaps particular individuals you may have questions about as well in privately. So as a general rule, if someone contacts you, if you can forward them to us, we recognize they're going to reach out to you because you are public figures, and so that's another channel for us to potentially recruit additional candidates who may not otherwise reach out.
Thank you.
I might mention that Dr. Faust had several different departments. He's been meeting online with folks, the conversations where you see him. And he's had, Walt shared with me, he had them process map the hiring process about what you do when you get the application, where it goes, and it's all on a really nice spreadsheet where you can see what happens after the references are checked and after the all the things that have to happen in the hiring process. What happens if it's yes or no, and it's a really great. And Dr. Wynn actually said, "Can you present that on Tuesday?" I said, "No, that's his work, and when he gets here, I think that's something he's got planned for you to look at, is kind of really doing a lot of process maps about lots of different process, not just HR and recruiting." But it was real helpful for me to see the big process that you go through with each candidate, and if it's yes or no, and what happens, and what you do next. And it was a good work on their part. So it's coming soon.
Coming soon.
And Dr. Thompson, really quick, where are we at with substitutes? Do we have a goal number, or do we still need 100? Do we still need 50? Where are we?
With substitutes, and checking in with Stephanie today, she had well over 200 substitutes. However, she still have a large number that is in kind of a situation with the state. About 60. And so, once these positions are cleared, then we can start that process.
Right, but we're still needing more to be referred in.
We need more, yes.
Okay.
We need more subs, yes.
So did I hear you correctly? July 27th, 4:30 to 7 p.m. And
Yes.
and then
Yes.
August the 4th, is it the same 4:30 to 7? Or what time?
August the 4th is a Saturday.
Okay, I got that.
And it will be from 9 to 12 p.m.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome to attend if you're free, if you'd like to.
It's the back to school fair. It's the back to school fair.
Telephone number, I can give them an appointment, but we will accept
They're
walk-ins, and we have that listed everywhere.
Okay.
Some of the back chatter up here was that that's the back-to-school fair, and so,
It is.
you want to add your
Is there any
comments?
way to have a computer available for them to apply or someone there to represent?
At the fair?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, we're gonna split up.
Oh, good.
So, and you may not see HR staff there, but we actually have a couple of supervisors that have already agreed. I just need to contact the manager of that event and ask them for 2 different tables. And they're ones that frequently go out with us, so we didn't want to pass it up because we knew there would be a lot of families, and we'll have our jobs there. So it'll be someone who can at least talk through different things with them and find out what else they may need, while some of us will be here for the certified.
Make sure you have internet access.
I'm sorry?
Make sure you have Wi-Fi access.
I'll ask them for that.
Yeah.
Because it's at Kansas City, Kansas Community College, right?
Yeah.
What location?
Okay, the location.
What location?
At the
The back
What
to school
location?
fair is
Back to
at-
school.
What location?
Jewel Center.
The Jewel Center?
Jewel building.
Lower? Check it out.
They usually go up and then
Yes, it's in the
down,
lower.
depending on.
I'll find
Been
that
there
out.
before. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We move next to the consent agenda. There's some items, however, that Dr. Ford would just like to make reference to before we ask you to approve.
No, we skipped it.
Reports to superintendent.
I'm ready.
So the first, reports of superintendent. So the,
I apologize.
that's okay. The first thing we want to discuss with you is the approval of the publication of the notice of the hearing for the 2018-2019 budget. So Dr. Mather? That's okay.
Dr. Wynn, board members, this is a request for you all to approve to give us permission to publish the notice of hearing, which is the Code 99, as soon as we can complete it. Again, I'm going to publicly acknowledge Kristen and her team. Kristen has worked about 58 hours since Thursday, since we got back from the budget workshop herself, and still working on this budget forms, which will produce the Code 99. A couple of things that we could do is ask you to give us permission to get it published, and we can give it to you as soon as it's complete, which would be, I don't know, today, tomorrow, the next day. We're actually going to go up and see Dale Dennis tomorrow, and we want to review it with him. We could call another special board meeting and have you review it at that point. But we need to have that done prior to the 30th or 31st so that we can get it published in time. So we are very close to getting this budget put together.
Okay.
So what we're asking for is approval of, it's not the budget, but the approval to publish the Code 99.
Right.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the publication of the notice of hearing for the 2018-19 budget. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passed. And if you have to have a meeting, desire a meeting, we desire a meeting, we will notify.
Yes. We'll know
members.
probably in the next day or two.
Probably after the meeting with Mr. Dennis.
Right.
Would be helpful. Okay.
Next, we have approved the proposed salaries for the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library and plan to update the policies, salary ranges, and job descriptions. And what I want to talk to you about is, again, truthfully, I made a mistake today. If my husband was here, he'd be really excited. I had sent a previous, Kelly had given me something, I had updated it and sent it to Susan, and then really what I ended up doing was sending Kelly's first one. I want to talk to you a little bit about the library, and we did meet with Ms. Levers, and we really kind of tried to get our arms around what information does the board need, and how can we use this as an opportunity for improvement here, but not rush in and do something so quickly that it's not done, because this is a big project, but this is a project that needs to happen. So the first question that you pulled off last time was about the raises. And truthfully, we were offering the library staff the same raise that we offered classified staff within the district, which was 2%. And that technically was kind of approved earlier on in your HR report. I think where the confusion comes is at the 5% benefit increase this year, and really what we have is your benefits went up this year, and it was about 5% of the cost of insurance, not of a 5% raise or anything. The cost of their insurance went up 5%, just like everyone else's. So the board was going to increase the cost of the benefits, which truly is 5% of the cost of the insurance, and that's where it gets confusion. This is not a 5% total benefit increase or 5% salary increase. So what we're hoping that will get done, as we looked at the salary schedules that you had questions over last time, is, and we talked about it, and this was done quite a bit ago in your library policy, and it's time for the library staff and the business staff and folks down here to go through and look at the library staff and look at their job descriptions, upgrade all the job descriptions, and then figure out which salary scale each person belongs on. It may be adding or taking away, we don't know yet at this point. So we're asking that they go ahead and update their job descriptions and go back and look at their library policy and bring you recommendations on updated library policy, and then also come up with an equalized salary schedule at that process too. And we would like that all done by the end of the first semester, by December, and have that in place so that when Dr. Faust is going through this process next year with you, you'll have a clear salary schedule, new updated library policy, and new updated job descriptions. So, Carol, I'm going to turn it over to you. I jumped in there. What else do you have to add to this? Or?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you, Dr. Ford. Yeah, we will meet with Dr. Mather, but we would also like to either meet with the board, special meeting with the board, or with you, Dr. Ford, to explain the differences between the salary scales of the school and the libraries, and maybe just to get us all on the same page. But yes, this has got nothing to do with, it was the 2%, and we were just fixing the ranges for you. We do it every year. We bring it to the board. We change the dates. Like last year's was 2017 to 2018. Now this year you've seen the reduction 2018 to 2019 school year. So that's basically it, but it was actually just the 2% that you okayed us for.
Kelly, do you have anything to?
I'm not sure I can make it more clear, but I just want to make sure that the board understands that that is simply a range that captures all of the salaries of those employees. It's that, so that what Ms. Levers was presenting as part of kind of the way their policy has been written, and I made a recommendation at the last board meeting to place that on a salary schedule that you've all approved, an equalized salary schedule. Don't think that'll take much time for us to do that, but we want to be fair and review job descriptions, make sure folks are placed in the right place, bring it to you for approval once that's done. But that does not change the 2% increase that the board has approved. That's constant. They don't get more than that. Doesn't even matter where they land on a salary schedule at that point, because there's not a salary schedule for them. Does that help or confuse it more?
Questions here? Questions over here? And exactly, that was the confusion, because you previously had been upgrading, I guess that could be a proper term, of your entire salary package, so that they could be comparable to area metro librarians. And that, I guess, where the clarity lacked, the lack of clarity was that the 2%, as you said, that was just reflected in your changes, but it wasn't clearly presented like that. And so that was one of the questions. And then on your library budget, where it says 2% for benefits, then this will say 5% benefit. And because they had not been explained as while the insurance has gone up and other benefits, that equated to a 5%. So, you know, you say you're you're approving one amount, and you're then asking to approve a second amount. So, with discussion comes more clarity, and that was a reason for asking for more clarification. Other comments, questions? Are you ready? Okay. So, you want to restate what you're asking?
Again, where the recommendation is to approve the 2% raise and then the increase of 5% in the benefit increase for the library staff, which is the same percentage as other District 500 classified staff, and approve a process for updating salary schedules, job descriptions, and recommendations for library policy during first semester.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a 2% raise and increase for the library staff that is the same as all USD 500 staff, but that the additive is to approve a process for updating salary schedules, job descriptions, recommendations due December, probably our first meeting, December 2018. Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passed.
And you've heard a little bit about the budget workshop that we went to and the legislative summary, and Kelly is going to update you on that. At the meeting, they spend a lot on the legislative summary, a lot of time, and then they get into the details of the budget process planning. And there are some written notes for you on front of you that you might follow as she goes through the process.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. Board members, in your board docs, we've given you the legislative summary update that we receive at the budget meeting. I did not give you the several hundreds of pages of budget forms. I didn't think you really wanted those. They were just samples that they gave us. But I've also asked Dr. Ford and Susan to upload just kind of my notes. And I just wanted to highlight some things that I thought were specific or areas of interest to the budget that really come out of here. So you can get a lot more information if you so choose to read this at your leisure. But I just want to highlight a few things, so feel free to follow along if you'd like. First thing that I put on my notes that I thought was of interest, not so much as we're putting the budget together, but the licensure and inspection requirements for child care facilities are specific to us in regards to our before and after school program for Kids Zone. So Senate Bill 428 has essentially stated that no license shall be denied, revoked, or suspended, particularly for buildings or environments that we have facilities that are for public education. That's kind of important because years ago when we were trying to get license for our Kids Zone sites, sometimes they would want to deny or suspend our license, and we've served hundreds of kids in our facilities all day long, but all of a sudden we can't serve, 100 kids after school. So that no longer can be the case anywhere across the state. Not as significant or really a budget impact for us, but an important one I wanted to point out to you. A lot of conversation Dale Dennis shared with us from House Bill 2602. Basically, he said that we're going to start hearing some information about dyslexia and that there will be a task force coming forward with a variety of recommendations regarding dyslexia and that we should anticipate that. Doesn't really know what that's going to mean, but that's what we're looking forward to. Probably going to look at evidence-based research, professional development, things of that nature. So we will keep our eyes open for that. Senate Bill 423 and Senate Bill 16, which then was Senate Bill 16, the pilot program for the mental health intervention program. You've heard us talk about that. That's the funding that we did receive in order to fill 11 positions. A coordinator and 10 of the social workers, separate from the board's 31 social workers that we are doing. But this is the mental health pilot program for the 1 year. So the district's getting a little over I believe it's $840,000 for that grant program. And then there's money that goes directly to PACES, which is our mental health community agency, that money goes directly to them through us. It's about $80,000. So we're hopeful that that will be more than a 1-year project. They're anticipating at least 2 years, and they're hopeful for 3, and they're also hopeful to expand that to more schools. Right now, we have just 10 of our schools, and there's just a handful of districts that are participating in that. The base state aid, of course, becomes very important for all of us. That's gone through several gyrations with Senate Bill 423 into Senate Bill 16. Long and short of it, it ended up for this current year to be at 4165 as the base aid for students. It is projected to increase to 4302 in the second year, next year, 1920, and you can see the progression that I provided you. The year following that will be 4439, 4576, 4713. So that progression is what is anticipated at this point. As we all know, that can change at any given moment. We've seen that change, but I'm hopeful, and that's a positive thing because that should bring more money to the school district, even with a flat enrollment. We, in the last several years, have had an increasing enrollment, slight, with the exception of the last 2 years. We'd stayed pretty flat because of the closure of some of the housing complexes. But even with a flat enrollment, an increase on the base will increase the overall budget. It's interesting is after 2023, the anticipation, at least in the Senate bill, is that it will be increased that base amount per pupil based on the CPI. Or the Consumer Price Index. So if the CPI is 1.3%, that's how much it'll go up. If it's 2%, that's how much it'll go up, whatever the CPI is for that year. That's several years out, but it was interesting to me that they switched over to CPI 5 years later. So I wanted to give you those base aids because that drives the general fund budget specifically. Wanted to also let you know that they shared with us the legislative post audit is doing a variety of audits, different years. In the current year, we have special education and related services audits, so we are a part of that. In 2020, they'll be auditing the at-risk funding. In 2021, they're doing a cost function analysis and statewide education performance. Can't tell you a whole lot about what that means right now, but my guess is that all of the audits that they are doing, they're going to analyze, and maybe they're going to expand that to other districts. I'm not really sure, but they're going to do a total cost function analysis. Then we're going to go into bilingual education in 2022, and then virtual schools will have an audit in 2023, and then followed up again with the cost function analysis. So as soon as we know more about what the cost function analysis is, we will inform you of that. Senate Bill 423 also eliminated the provision to use capital outlay for utilities and or property and casualty insurance. We were not doing that anyway. It does not impact the board's budget, but it does eliminate that as an option. Also, we talked a little bit about bond issuances, and there is now a cap on total bond issuances not to exceed $350 million. That is tracked by the Kansas State Department of Education for capital improvement. So if the problem with that can potentially happen is if you have large school districts that go out for a bond, for example, our large bond at $235 million, that takes a lot of that cap of $350 million. So what happens is schools start competing for when they can try to issue their bond referendums. So they're going to try to see how that works out, but we've already got schools lining up in order to say this is what they want for their bonds. So the cap is important. House Bill, Senate Bill 61 also requires that every school district have their local option budget at 15%. Again, a non-issue for us. We're at 30%. Most school districts, I believe every single school district is required to be over 15 and is, and most of them are usually around 23 to 30% and on up to 33%. So not an issue for us. For the at-risk program, it was the 4-year-old at-risk program. Now we'll accept 3-year-olds in the 4-year-old at-risk program if all of your 4-year-olds are already served. So the Senate Bill 61 has allowed a provision in that bill to include 3-year-olds in the at-risk program. But first you have to have the approved slots by KSDE. Our approved slots remain the same at 570. Which is actually 280, I think it's actually 283 part-time FTEs. So none of those things are going to bear a whole lot of impact on the budget right now with the exception of the base. And the final couple things that I wanted to mention was something that we will continue to work with our schools that is important is a requirement to conduct emergency preparedness drills. Some of this is not different from what we've typically done. Some of it is. There is a requirement of 4 fire drills throughout the year. 3 tornado drills throughout the year. Those are pretty common. We used to do more fire drills than that. But now 9 crisis drills, and that is a difference. So we were doing quarterly or a minimum of 3 intruder drills in our district for years. That now has to go to 9 intruder drills, have to be completed and submitted to the State Department. So that's important. We'll be working with Ms. Stewart's department and Chief Horn and making sure that we get all of those completed. So they did release the forms after we went to the budget hearing. So as I mentioned earlier, Kristen and her team and myself have been working diligently on trying to get this budget put together in a very short order. Historically, we've had a month or more, except for the last couple of years. So now we're getting used to having 3 or 4 days. But we are working on that, and hope to have that. We're going to meet with Dale Dennis tomorrow, as I mentioned, and he's going to review the forms as we do every year, make sure we haven't missed anything. We'll get the Code 99 published, and we'll have the budget hearing as we had outlined before. We have a Counting Kids workshop. We always host one every year. I did provide that date for you, scheduled for September 11th. I will overemphasize the importance of the audit every single time. We experienced that this year. If we don't get our numbers in, that impacts your overall general fund. So September 10th, we require all principals to attend that. They need to have that information, and everybody is all hands on deck, all hands on board to make sure that we are successful in our audit. So that's the state's workshop. Wanted to give you a brief update of everything we've accomplished. Okay. Questions?
I got a quick question. Could you, what is involved in our bilingual education component?
In regards to what, Mr. Brown, specifically? The types of programming? Is that the question? Or?
Yes, types of programs.
Well, I will defer to the director of ESL to probably speak to that a lot more eloquently than I can.
Okay, and one more question. Is in the, where is that? Is active shooter drill, is that in the crisis?
Yes, that's the crisis, one of the 9 required crisis drills that we have to do is the active shooter or shooter drill. Gotcha. People call it and reference it to different names.
I got you.
Might also just reference you to the budget document that I provided you at one of our budget meetings, special budget meetings, where I outlined all of those funds for you. The bilingual fund is clearly defined in there. It's always going to be a reference guide for you every time you're wondering about those funds. But if you want to know specifically about programs, I think maybe Ms. Scott is not here. Ms. Scott is not here, so I think she did that on purpose. Call her up when she gets back.
Exactly. Other questions?
But that's a good reference point for you, is that budget document.
No other questions, comments? Just as an addition, if you go on the Kansas Association School Board website, the Executive Director, Mark Tallman, has provided, it's an easy read of an explanation, starting out with state aid for school district bonds projects, how it works, how it matters, and other type of information.
That's really a good document.
So if possible, maybe Ms. Westphal, we can make copies for members. Just an easy reference, a very easy reference to not as complicated a process as it seems. I only live at 12 months a year, and you 24 months a year. And Ms. Tristan, 48 months a year. But nevertheless, thank you. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right. Is that all, Dr. Ford? Now we'll go to, and we will hear from you again.
Right.
But before we ask for a motion to accept the consent agenda, it's a little different going outside the rules, but there's a couple items that I asked Dr. Ford to just give a little bit insight without pulling it from the agenda and moving on.
And honestly, if you have other questions, it always is helpful, and I appreciate getting this ahead of time so I could do some follow-up. And I will be honestly, learned some new things on this. I mean, I've been here 3 weeks. I don't know everything yet. So one of the things that should happen on your HR consent form is there will be some times where you're approving further work. Like you may have some curriculum work that's going to be done in the summer. And so there might be 10 positions where they're going to ask people to come in and they're going to be paid so much an hour. And then, so you as a board should approve that ahead of time. Then what happens is the people come in and do the work, and then they fill out a timesheet, and then it comes back to the business office. They should check to see if it was on the already approved, and if it isn't, that becomes a problem, and somebody ought to. But then it goes back on what they are paid. So they might have worked 3 hours at $15, and it should show you what they were paid. When I went and kind of questioned, I think this is most often happen, but I do think this is another opportunity where it's a good time that we could review our process. In past experiences in other districts, sometimes I see what happens is, like the building may have this happen, they do the timesheets and then it gets stuck in somebody's desk or something, and then it comes down here and it may be even the next year. So it's a good time to review the process, and I'll put it in some notes to Dr. Faust that it really is something we need to look at. But there were some people that worked on this agenda and it looked like it was from time ago, but they have done the work and we really should pay them if they've done the work. And if it got on the agenda, that means that the business department went back and checked to see if it was approved beforehand.
Okay, let me add a little clarification. Item number C is a human resources report and recommendations. Toward the end are 5 or 6 requests to pay people who worked in the spring 2018 or in the summer 2018. And it seems unusual that, one, you would approve an expenditure that has already been worked for, but 2, you don't want to say not pay the employees that have already worked for it. So this is the challenge of getting timesheets in on time
and making sure that it's approved before they come and do it. And it's just a good time to review that. I always have recommended at whoever's taking them from the school that they timestamp when they received it, because you can kind of see where the problem is sometimes. If it comes to the business office, they need to get it, go ahead and do the process and then get them paid. But if the problem's with the building or the department not turning them in, or is it the problem with the business office for not moving ahead? So there's some ways that we can look at making that more efficient, I believe.
Okay.
The next thing was about your, this time you have your Kansas Association of School Board membership on there. And there is, one of those is for some additional legal fees for about $2,000. What I did find out, that was for your policy updates that they will do every year and provide to you. So that's something, when you redid all your policies several years ago, you went into an agreement with KSB that they would review them and update them versus Greg, I think he still reviews them but doesn't do the... Yeah,
so but what happens with that is...
Speaking to your mic, please.
I will. What happens with that is, a couple of years ago, we used to have different policies from KSB in terms of our form policies. And this has probably been 4 or 5 years ago now. Most of the districts in the state of Kansas use KSB's form policies or model policies. The reason they do that is because KSB pays attention. They've got specific designated staff to pay attention to changes in the law, both at a state level and a federal level on an annualized basis, or different regulations that come out. So what they then do is, with the model policies, when those changes to the legislation come out, they make recommended changes to the model policies that you guys adopt. Now, the additional step there is you guys have a lot of policies that are modified from the model policies, as do most districts in the state, based upon how you guys operate here in this school district. For example, you guys bus students at a closer rate than the state requires you to do so. So, you know, the state allows you to not bus people for, I think, up to 2 miles. You bus at a much shorter distance than that. That's an example of a difference in policy. And so when they make their recommended changes, we review those just to make sure that none of the recommended changes depart from what the board has previously approved as a departure from the model policy. So that's all we do. And you'll get those from probably next month. We got the recommendation changes from KSB about a week ago. We review those, then we give them to you guys for a first read, and then you have a second read and adopt them at that point.
There's also the option for either the superintendent, the board president, or probably others that they can call up legal advice from KASB for no additional dollars. Sometimes when I have used that in the past, it may be something you can't get a hold of your attorney, so you can quickly pick up and get another. The other way I've used it is if it's something specific to other districts across the state. They may have a handle about how another district is dealing with it. So I've used that both on athletic things and on other issues that have come up. So it is part of your KASB that you add in addition, but I would make the recommendation that you keep with that. I was going to mention we have in the past and have it on this year is, what do they call it, to go to the in-services where you get fast pass, right? And what that means is
Season pass.
Season pass, and it's not a whole lot more money, but you can send up to 5, 6 people to training, and that includes board members on board training. I know a lot of board members that go through the certification process where you go to different ones. I know several of you have participated on those, and then you get a certificate at the end of the year. There's a leadership board group that's pretty neat, that's pretty intense, that goes across the state looking at opportunities. And then the other thing that kind of comes with that is a lot. We can fill in staff if you don't want to go. Like they have every year, they have one on discipline. Board members find that pretty interesting. Well, if only 2 members want to go, we may be able to send some police officers or even assistant principals or something to fill that up. So it works pretty well if you coordinate it and keep looking to make sure that you fill it. So that was the information on KASB. There was a contract for Vibrant Health contract, and if this is really more of a memo of understanding. We've had this group for a long time. I think Greg has reviewed this, and what it is actually they come in and do a lot of free dental assessments and other types of assessments with kids. It's been going on a long time. This doesn't particularly cost us anything, but what it does do is we do have a memorandum of understanding about what data we share and how we handle different things between it. And it's been a very positive program for the school district in the past.
Is that just for Argentine?
No, it's for the
entire district?
Entire district. Yeah.
Okay.
On here it notes Argentine, so.
That's what I was asking.
It'll be housed there.
But
it's for the entire
facilities, but they share it. They put facility or people there, but it goes out to the complete district. Anybody else have something to share on that?
And I also have Patrick here. He wants to add to it. Thank you, Dr. Wynn, Dr. Ford. It is to the memorandum of understanding and our agreement. Dr. Colvin submitted that for the schools that want to take advantage of our dental screenings, and we wanted to make sure we were sharing information. But in addition, part of the privilege I have is working with community partners, and so we want to expand our behavioral health as we're onboarding the social workers and begin to identify those continuum of services for our families and for our youth. And so that's why we added the additional memorandum of understanding with that information to be included and the on-site that we'll have at Argentine. In the past, Maddie Rhodes, first it was KU, that's the history, and then Maddie Rhodes took over those services so we can provide direct services at the school. Since then, Maddie Rhodes had some budget constraints and had to pull their funding, but I've been working with Patrick, and we're going to maintain that service with the therapist that he has that will be placed directly at Argentine. And he's here as well if you had any specific questions about those services. He also is going to be at our centralized enrollment, so our families that have barriers with immunizations, his staff will be there to make appointments immediately so that we can continue to expedite enrollment for our families. And so that will be the first year we're doing that as a result of our partnership. So some exciting things are happening, and we wanted to establish this memorandum of understanding to expedite services for our families.
So could you explain more? Is there various schools that they're assigned to go to per quarter, or how does that look?
He's ready. He's jumping up to come.
And he can speak directly to the services. Right now, we'll only be at Argentine, but I'll allow him to speak to that for the site-based work.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for letting me help clarify. So we have portable dental that goes to, I think last year we were in 21 schools. Okay. And the school nurses make the contact with our dental staff. And so it has historically been optional for schools to opt in to our services or not. And we show up, we're not in schools on Mondays and we're not in schools on Wednesdays, but the other days where they're doing cleanings and the nursing staff help secure which students are going to be seen that day. And we spend essentially the balance of the school year going from school to school.
So if there were places that weren't covered last year, how can we, or if a school opts to not participate, how can we know about that so we can provide more encouragement for all of the schools to participate? How could
I believe
that
we
be
can
done?
provide a list of which schools are participating.
And part of the memorandum of understanding, Dr. Yeager, allows us to know that there's an approved provider so that we know that Vibrant Health, when they come in and provide the mobile dental clinic, that they're doing the screenings as opposed to, I think, some previous agencies that make contacts that do extractions and those things. We don't want to do that. And so they offer the free services, but we want to make sure there's parent permission, the parents know what's happening, so they come in and do the free screening and then talk about and recommend for the families additional services that they need. And it's our hope that we can share that this now is approved through the board, that this is our provider, so then we can then begin to encourage them so they may be worried about some of those things, like are there extractions, when does it happen, how to set up look, and we've talked about how we'll build capacity to serve, provide that service for all of our schools.
Good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
That was our discussion of, it appeared to just be for Argentine, but there had not been any explanation.
Right, and the Argentine piece, if you want to talk about that, Patrick, that's for our behavioral health. That's the piece I was talking
right.
about, that they'll be directly housed in Argentine to maintain what service was already provided there, that had been previously been provided by Maddie Rhodes. And they had to cut some of their funding, and we didn't want to lose what we were providing for the students there at Argentine. So my relationship and partnership with Patrick allowed Patrick to invest in that so that we could continue that behavioral health piece at Argentine. Great. And they do happen to be one of our pilot schools too, so we'll have, we'll have a behavioral health liaison there, and then we'll also have Vibrant Health right there to provide direct services to our families and meet families where they are. They can come to the school.
Good.
And please, hope you don't mind if we ask you back later, midway through, to share your success.
Yes, happy to do it.
It's exciting, it really
Thank you.
is.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Any other questions about the, or comments?
The other question that we had was about the Precision Exam LLC software for $23,000.
No. We've got to do the consent agenda.
Oh, no, this is on the consent.
Is
it? Oh, okay.
You and I are making the same mistakes.
Okay.
We're together today.
Okay, good.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Great. Now, payment of bills.
Okay, we had two questions about payment of bills. One was about the Precision LLC software, $23,750. This is the second year we have used this software, and it's for all the high schools, and it's part of your academy program on your Diploma Plus. It includes, the neat thing that it does the testing for pre and post and single exams so that certificates can be issued to students in order to meet the Diploma Plus certification that you're requiring with that. Jason, did you want to add anything else to this?
Just that we're poised to probably have about approximately 400 students be ready to take that for next year so that they can have a credential or stackable certificate in various areas from web design, entrepreneurship, but those are the type of certificates that they will have access to with that program.
So clarification, is this only available to high school? Or are we going to think about doing it for middle school, or is there a limited number that can
Right now it's with high school because it aligns with the academy specifically, so the students that are in those academy pathways. But the prep work at the middle school level is preparing them for those academies. And so most certificates, and I'm not sure about the ones listed here, but most of them have an age requirement. They have to be a certain age, but this particular one is more appropriate for the high school student when they finish their CTE courses and they're ready to take those assessments.
I'd like to see it if it's possible, so I can get a full understanding of it, just to see what's tested on it and how we're thinking about assessing students. Because I'm such an advocate, there was a report this past week saying that technical jobs and labor jobs are in high demand, and the sooner we can get our middle schoolers achieving goals and seeing that they can do more than what they may see and make that connection between career and what they're learning in class will help us get them into the industry a little quicker and full understanding. So I'd just like to partner with you to learn more about that.
And Dr. Strickland, a question. How many times can they take this test? Is there a limit, or?
That I'm not sure on.
Okay.
Ms. Brownlee-Page, but I can check into that and see. I think with the software, we're available. We should be able to have control to give it again, but I'm asking the team to look in just how our curriculum actually prepares them for those assessments, but I'll find that question out specifically.
Thank you.
The other question we had, and this was kind of fun to get in and find, there was a Panera expense for $1,048. It was used for the end of the school library staff appreciation. Was it in April?
It was an in-service of the library staff in April.
And so we had issued a check to pay it to Panera, and for some reason it didn't go through, so we reissued this check. So it's not new on this year's budget. It was already issued, so it was resent. And we should have specified that somehow or given you some information on that before. We have gone over with the new rules about $10 per staff per year with food, and that was gone over to, this week with principals. And so everybody will be following that. As we looked into this, we said, well, you know what we need? There's an opportunity for improvement because we're going to have to figure out a way to monitor who's, because they're doing it all different times of year. They may do it back to school, some may wait and do it at the end of the year, or some may do it at Christmas, but we're going to have to get some sort of system in place to kind of monitor who has done their staff appreciation money that you've allocated for food.
Any other questions on payment of bills?
What would have been the reason why it didn't go through? Is that a technical issue? Is that a loss possibly? Okay.
Yeah, our understanding is they never received the check, so we would cancel that and we've reissued this check.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Looks like there's a question. Is there a question?
No.
Okay.
We got it.
I move we pay our bills.
Second.
It's been moved and second to pay the bills. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passed. Now executive session. I need a motion for the board to recess into executive session at 5:55 for 15 minutes for discussion of personnel.
Actually, I think it's attorney-client privilege.
Attorney-client.
Okay. Don't have it.
It's supposed to be attorney-client privilege.
For a discussion of attorney-client privilege pursuant to exception, everything else the same? For non-elected personnel under the Kansas Open Meetings Act?
No, it's, I don't know which exception it is. It's the exception for attorney-client privilege to discuss pending litigation is what it is.
To discuss pending litigation. So 15 minutes would be return at 6:10. Need the motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Everybody's ready. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passed. We shall return at 6:10. We have a couple minutes. Need a motion to come back into regular session, please?
So moved. Second.
Had motion and second to resume, come back in regular session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Now I need a motion for the board to recess into executive session at 6:15 for 15 minutes to discuss teacher negotiations pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations on the Kansas Open Meetings Act. The open meeting will resume at 6:30 with no action to follow.
So
Need a
moved.
motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to go in executive session at 6:15. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passed. Thank you. We need a motion to resume, come back into regular session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to come back in regular session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion passed. Now, board calendar, ladies and gentlemen.
There's a pretty accurate calendar in the agenda. Might kind of point out that a really fun thing happens on August 1st when all the new teachers come back, and they always are so cute. They come in, they worked their whole time to get that degree, and they look so good the first day. So that's August 1st from 8 to 8:30. If you want to be there and greet them, we would certainly love to have you. It's already been mentioned, the Back to School Fair, and what an exciting event that is on August 4th for all of our district. All teachers report on the 6th, and they have a day of prep, which is great. And then they have district and building in service. And then finally on the 8th is our convocation, and it's at Memorial Hall, and I'm sure we'll be getting some more details about that in the future. The first day of school for pre-K 5 through 5, 6, and 9 is the 10th. And then there's also our next board meeting is actually on the 14th of that month. So there's just a lot happening between now when teachers come back. We can't wait to see them, and before we get the kids back too, will be great.
And as clarification, is the location, what's the specific location of the August 1 new hire in Schlegel? Is it the cafeteria? Is it, where is it?
Does anybody know right off?
I think they start off, they'll do the, I think in the auditorium where they'll do the actual welcome.
Okay, so we should come to the auditorium, all right?
I'll make sure I update you on Friday if I
Good.
changes.
And then the back-to-school fair, you already said is Upper Jewel or both Upper and Lower Jewel?
Bay College organizes that, but, you know, they have them pretty spread out. I think it's
Usually Lower Jewel, all right. And of course, everybody else knows everything else. Any questions on the calendar, ladies and gentlemen?
Do we need to include when we're having the job fairs or on our calendar or not? No.
I can add mine if you want me to.
I think it's important that we know so that we can make sure that we attend or be able to provide additional support.
Also, I don't know who we talked to, mentioned job fair. Is it posted in the call?
Yeah, it's posted. You're talking about
In the call newspaper?
I'm not sure.
Okay, make sure.
However, the dates that we were provided, the 27th and 4th, are not listed on our webpage. It's not on our main webpage. The last date that it shows is July 24th, so the two that were recently added are not published.
They haven't been added yet.
So.
Come to the microphone, please.
Thanks, Dr. Wynn, Board. We're meeting with Ms. Folks in the morning to talk about the communication surrounding that. We'll be using, since this was a quick turnaround one, I think this was just added, the Friday one, this week. So we're going to utilize Facebook ads to get that out and to cast a wider net than just the metro area. We'll cast a wider net to reach as many people as possible. We had a lot of success with those social media ads by actually putting ads out on Facebook. So.
And are we doing radio as well? Because I know the fellows mentioned that a lot of them applied because they heard our ad on the radio. So are we doing radio?
With radio, I was able to get some free radio ads. I will see if I can work my magic to get some free stuff from them for the radio ads. I don't know. It's very last minute, but I'll see what I can do on that avenue. Otherwise, it'll probably be, because the ads that they gave us was over $2,000 in free in-kind type advertising, so I'll see what we can do, but I don't know at this point. So we're going to talk in the morning about what we can do to get the word out as quickly and as fast as possible, and I'm sure we'll be able to reach a lot of people.
Well, they put on the Met on cable, Time Warner Cable channel.
It will definitely be on our channel. We definitely do that too.
Not just our channel, but the MetNet channel.
Yes, we will get that information out that way too.
And something that's not on here, Ms. Jones, would you like to tell us about the concert on July 29th? Ms. Jones?
Oh. Okay. Metropolitan has, for the last 5 years, had a concert for the homeless, the Benefits the Homeless program. It will be Sunday, July the 29th at 3 o'clock at Metropolitan Baptist Church at 853
Washington Boulevard.
Washington Boulevard, across the street from Douglas Elementary.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
And you will notify us whether we're going to have a special meeting on the 31st?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
There is a parade listed on here. Are we doing anything special as a group for that, or could you clarify?
Correct.
Black Firefighters Parade.
Right.
We usually
if those are the go, we usually have a van or something, and we ride in the van, because they ask the school district to come.
Okay, so
More information we'll get, because it's usually time to line up, and it goes from 17th to Quindaro to Quindaro
Line
Park.
up at 8:30 and starts at 9.
and the Quindaro was recently acknowledged as a National Historical.
Quindaro Ruins.
Yes, yes. So that was recently passed in the legislature.
U.S. Congress.
U.S. Congress. It just recently passed that this past week. So it's important that we support.
There's a lot going on.
Right.
So we will get emails from Susan a lot and everybody else. There's also an agenda, a board agenda timeline that please look at it. And if there are items that you want to add, please consider. There's a couple things Dr. Strickland, Dr. Ford mentioned. We haven't looked at the assessments.
I've been talking to Dr. Faust about that. Him and I have been communicating about every other day, and I've been sending him that information. My last conversation with him is he wants to go over it together and plan the presentation for the board with that data.
Are we looking, you think, August?
I think we have it, it'll definitely be August.
Okay.
I think from his analysis of it and how he wants to do it, if it'll be like a regular board meeting, or do we want to do a special board meeting on that?
We'll determine it. To be determined. TBD.
But I think it'll definitely be in August. The data's ready to go. You heard Dr. Ford mention that we've shared it, and like we had before, the booklets last year, all that's ready.
Right.
Dr. Faust just wants to get familiar with it, so we can, because some of our, there's more than you've asked, but some of our future goals, he's identified some things we want to include in it as we revise it. So I actually have a conversation with him tomorrow scheduled.
Great, great. We're looking forward to doing a lot of collaboration. How about that? That'll work. Any other comments, please? No. One other. Greg, would you like to tell us what Dr. Yeager, you mentioned the juvenile detention. Greg found the information, sent it to everyone.
Yeah, all the board members have soon gotten that information. So the Juvenile Detention Center, they don't have any space or facility to hold a board meeting, so you can't have a board meeting there. But there are no special requirements or restrictions in terms of the board getting a tour of the facility in the school. That will just need to be arranged or coordinated with the principal that runs the school in JDC. And so I provided that contact information, whether you want to do it as a board as a whole, which is what I would recommend, or individually, we could arrange it that way as well. But basically, you'd still need to notice it up because it would be a gathering of the board as a whole. There wouldn't be any action items to take place at that, but it would just be a tour of the facility and the school within that facility, and then you just need to schedule a date.
So I just asked us to get our calendars and make sure you block out times that you already have obligations so that we can coordinate.
And about how long will that take?
Hour or 2 hours at the most, maybe an hour and a half.
You will have to go through security, and I outlined all that information in the email. So there is a time lag to it. It's not just you get to walk in the door and walk through the facility. So there's a little bit of a.
Kind of have to.
So keep reading the emails from staff, and we'll see. Need a motion to adjourn, please?
Second.
Been moved and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Stay here.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.